Correct me if I'm wrong, because we were in the middle of it last night. We will play a snippet of Stugotz giving hot takes while being mashed. Thank you to everybody who participated in the draft party. It was a lot of fun. The watch party. Except for the fact that it feels like the Dolphins' season ended at the end of the night. And I want to see if I have this wrong, because Chris Cody, the team I saw yesterday, cannot go on the road to Kansas City, to Buffalo, to Baltimore. That's not a manageable slalom course. The season's over. Unless some of those big teams lose and you don't have to go through Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore. And at the end of the game, you're throwing into double coverage to Chase Claypool. At the end of the game, there were 3 times this season, Stugotz, where the Dolphins had a one-score game with the ball for the final time. This doesn't count the Dallas game because Dallas had, with whatever time remaining, Dallas did have some time left at the end of the game, though very little, not very much. Mm-hmm. But 3 times, the Dolphins had the ball with a chance to win the game, and all 3 times they didn't score any points.
Right.
And that's how they go from 2 to 6. Somehow Buffalo yesterday could have gone at the beginning of the day. Buffalo could have been 8. They could have been out of the playoffs. Instead, they're the 2 seed by winning that game.
Yep.
And you lose to Josh Allen twice this season. You feel good about your chances to beat, even if you get past Kansas City. Do you feel good about your chances? Now you got to go on the road and in the cold for the rest of the games. Like, I don't want to be somebody.
Well, depending on what happens here, but I mean, I don't want to say the season's over, Dan. What I will say is I could see the Dolphins beating the Chiefs this weekend.
Okay, and I can see anybody winning anything in a one-game sample, but we can all agree, right? That slalom course of Buffalo, you're going to go on the road against teams that are better than you when you're injured and play in the cold? Like, in what world? What world are you winning the 3 of those games?
And I know that I've been giving Dolphins fans some guff because of all the excuses that they've had, but last night you guys crossed the Van Ginkel threshold where Melvin Ingram started getting meaningful snaps.
Right.
So I think now you can use that excuse. You're too hurt.
You had a 3-game lead with 5 games remaining.
Their path to the Super Bowl is clearly difficult. Like, no one's going to argue with you
it's
that
impossible.
Yeah, like, I'm with you.
It's not that it's difficult. It's
Nothing's
impossible.
impossible.
I'm with Dan.
Stop that.
Obviously, it's like you guys want to do the game. Yes, it's possible, but it's not going to happen. But if we want to talk deeper than that, is this a good season for the Dolphins? And the answer all year has felt like yes, and it's no if they don't win in Kansas City.
Falsehoods. This is why this is a good season for the Dolphins, and you guys need to remember this right now. Tua led the league in passing yards. Tyreek Hill led the league in receiving yards. He was 1 shy of 1,800. Mm-hmm. It's the first Dolphin player to ever lead the league in receiving yards. Raheem Mostert led the NFL in rushing touchdowns, and he was tied for most touchdowns with Christian McCaffrey. Also, I have a reminder here to cancel the red zone, which I just did, which made me so happy. Also, Tua had the 3rd most passing yards in Dolphins team history this season. Now, there was the extra game that Dan Marino didn't have, but it was 3. You should be happy with this season, and it's not impossible to go to the Super Bowl, and I have marked that down, and if we are in Las Vegas and the Dolphins have to be playing in the Super Bowl, Chris Cody, I'm making a decision here on behalf of the company, will not be attending that game.
Dan said it first. I was just concurring with Dan.
You're
said.
out.
He will not be buying the tickets himself. He will not be allowed to miss work on Monday.
My mom will be buying them.
Nope, you will not be allowed
My
to
mommy
miss work on
already
Monday.
said she's going if they make the Super Bowl, and she's
You're
buying
not.
me a ticket.
I'm calling your mom, and you're not going. You're not going. You're grounded. Chris is grounded. He's not going to the Super Bowl.
But seriously, can we talk about – all right, you want to talk about Tua? I wanted to save this conversation for after the season, but you saw Tua on that
you
bootleg.
ended the season.
You saw Tua on that bootleg last night. It was a successful 9-yard run, and it was the worst thing I saw all night.
Right.
That right there let me know. And then you see Josh Allen late in that game on 3rd and 38, breaking 42 tackles and getting over the first down line. Like, these are 2 different quarterbacks. Like, you can talk accuracy all you want. Tua throws way too many interceptions. If you're not going to run, if you're going to run like Josh Allen, you can't throw interceptions. You know what I mean? Josh Allen throws interceptions, but at least he can run the shit out of the ball.
Right.
Tua throws a lot of interceptions, can't run the ball at all.
Yes.
It's just there's a gap there with those quarterbacks.
You want him to be running at his size?
I want a quarterback that can do both.
I think in all of the stats that Billy mentioned, which were impressive, the one that was missing was Tua played all 18.
Yep.
And that was
a
a
positive.
huge deal entering this season.
Right.
A season in which they only beat one good team in the Dallas Cowboys, and they did so with field goals. And I guess it's inverted. The Bills are playing their best football at the right time, and the Dolphins seem to be playing their worst football at the worst possible time.
They are 1-5 against playoff teams. The Dolphins are this year. But Dan talks about this all the time. He says it almost every single week. Which team is going to be healthiest at the end? And the Dolphins got unhealthy really, really quickly.
On the bright side, the Dolphins are 3-0 in the postseason against Kansas City.
What decade
The
was
bad
those?
side of that is
Hank
the last
Stram.
game was in 1994.
Chiefs are due.
And they also haven't beaten the Chiefs in 13 years.
And it hasn't been since Chad Pennington that you guys actually get to go into the playoffs with your starting quarterback.
I like the Dolphins this week. I'm just going to go
So
on
do
record
I.
and say it right
Yeah.
now. The Chiefs have not looked overwhelming. Yeah, you could say the weather. I like the Dolphins. Dolphins and the Chiefs hung together.
I don't disagree that they can win that one game, but overall, like we can have a discussion.
Listen.
Like this didn't go the way we wanted it to.
But Chris, if
5
they-
weeks ago, we were 10-3.
Chris, if they can win in Kansas City at Arrowhead, they can win anywhere.
Boom.
I
They
mean,
can win.
Not this year. What is that? That's not true. what
Hold
you
on a
just said.
second. Hold on a second. Are you
How
guys
is it not true?
He's right about that. Are you guys saying
you, Bill.
that it is?
Congratulations, Las Vegas Raiders. You can win anywhere.
Are you guys saying that it's impossible for the Steelers to pull off an upset next week against the Bills? Because I could see that happening too. And then what happens? If that happens, if the Dolphins win
Now I'm
and
back.
then the Steelers play the Bills, then the Steelers have to go to Baltimore. And then what happens? Any given Sunday,
Yep.
Baltimore sometimes throws up on themselves in the playoffs, Dan. You
True.
can't say that that's not the
All
case.
the
AFC
time.
Championship Smetty Bowl, Billy?
It's possible. I'm just saying it's possible. And if that happens, Chris is grounded and he's not going.
The part that I disagreed with on possible, you can create those scenarios where the top teams are losing, and then the Dolphins can even have a home game within one of those scenarios. But I'm talking about having to go through Lamar Jackson on the road. You're going through Patrick Mahomes on the road, and you're going through Josh Allen on the road. You mentioned all of those stats, but I will go back to what I was saying about the end of games and the winning that's required from your star players at the end of games. In all three of those one-score games that I was talking about, Stugotz, against the Chiefs and others, where they have the ball and a chance, and the season felt like it ended last night on the decision to throw to Chase Claypool in a double team, that on all three of those drives, Tua and Tyreek Hill screwed something up. Your stars, instead of winning the games at the end, did the very opposite of that. And you talk about Josh Allen and the way that he runs. He gave you the game you need to have from him to beat them. He had 3 turnovers. He made 2 very bad decisions.
But he also made like half a dozen plays
Correct.
that no one else in the league can make.
Yeah, but
He was 30 of 38.
you lost to a quarterback who turned the ball over 3 times, Stugotz. And if you look at what's happened to their offense since Ken Dorsey was fired, they are worse in every way except turnovers. And I don't think they've got the turnovers fixed. I don't think you can fix the turnovers with him. You can get lucky on occasion. But that's the game you need Josh Allen to play in order to beat them.
Correct, and the Dolphins got it last night.
I mean, you could have it be a worse game. I mean, their defense was injured, Stugotz. He could have thrown 5-yard passes for the entire night the same way that he did last year when they came here and lost. He could have completed 30 of 38 of 5-yard passes, but he was throwing the ball down the field. He was running. He turned the ball over 3 times. All you need is your quarterback not to. You didn't even need Tua. They could have won that game last night without Tua throwing over 200 yards. They could have won that game last night with Tua just being game manager. But Tua also turned the ball over. Tua and Josh Allen produced as many touchdowns as each other in that game for all the yardage that Josh Allen had. Buffalo won because they got a special teams touchdown.
Right.
But
Well, Allen had 2 touchdown passes. Tua had 1.
understood. But what I'm saying is the Dolphins had 14 points and touchdowns from their offense. The Bills had 14 points and touchdowns
Special teams.
from their offense. All you need Tua to do in that circumstance to beat Josh Allen is not turn the ball over. Or at the end of the game, just go tie it at the end. But instead, he gave you the turnover at the end.
When the ball bounces off Van Ginkel's helmet and ends in an insane touchdown catch, it's just not your night, I feel like, right? Like, we could all just agree it just wasn't the Dolphins' night.
How happy were you, Jessica? Because I believe that the Dolphin season has been giving you gifts this last month, that this has been a wonderful holiday December for you that began with the watch party where you witnessed. All of this was avoidable. All you had to do was hold on to a lead with that damn Vrabel. But you can't do it.
That game ended up mattering. Like, it mattered. They needed to win that game.
They all
didn't.
matter.
They all matter, but that one definitely mattered. They had a two-score lead late in the fourth quarter, Stugotz. I just think, like, from my standpoint of I wrote off a lot of teams midway through the season. We'll get to my top 5.
Let's do it right now.
No, I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
Top 5 teams you wrote off?
Yes, that are in the
wow.
playoffs.
Wow.
It's a good list,
Yes.
but I'm not ready. One of those teams is the Steelers, and now they're the 7 seed, and the Dolphins are only the 6 seed, and you all have to root for the Steelers to win so that you don't have to play Baltimore if you somehow pull off a win.
So there's 4 others. We assume the Browns are probably one of those teams.
She's not ready.
She
yet.
wasn't ready
they
for
might
it.
not
though.
It's her list, Billy.